So we're kicking off this short series called The Power of Giving, and I can just, oh no, she's going to talk about money. Oh, don't turn off your device. Sit tight. It's okay. It's okay. We can talk about some money. Before you, don't click that little X in the corner of your video. Don't do it. Don't check out mentally. It's okay. We'll be fine. Because we're just going to chat for a few minutes about why talking about money makes us so uncomfortable. Because we all heard the cliche, in polite conversation, you don't bring up religion and politics. And so we try not to do that. But the unwritten rule is often we don't talk about money. We don't talk about money. Why don't we talk about money? It makes us really uncomfortable. The state of our finances often seems to be this top secret information that we just don't want anybody to know about. But why? Perhaps we're a little bit like Cain. There's been an ongoing debate about why God accepted Abel's offering but not Cain's. Is it because Abel's offering was an animal and Cain's was a vegetation or a crop? Some scholars suggest it was because Abel's was a blood offering, and we all know you can't get blood out of a turnip, so maybe, there's my joke for the day. So maybe that's why God didn't accept Cain's offering. But what struck me as I was reading this passage of Scripture in various translations was that not that one was an animal and one was a crop, or one involved blood and one didn't, but what struck me was the quality of the offering. Not what it consisted of, but what its quality was. So if we look at Genesis 4:3 through 4a, in the King James Version, said that Cain brought the fruit of the ground in offering unto the Lord. And Abel brought the firstlings of his flock. In the NIV, it says, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil, while Abel brought the fat portions from some of the firstborn of the flock. In the NLT, which I just read, some of Cain's crops as a gift. Abel, the best portions of the firstborn lambs. And then in the NRSV, Cain brought to the Lord an offering of the fruit of the ground, and Abel, for his part, brought of the firstlings of the flock, his first portions. This was the first recorded offering in the Bible, the first recorded one. And in this recorded account of an offering, God sets the bar. God sets the bar of what God expects for our offerings. What does God expect? God expects the first fruits, the best fruits, the first and the best. And what did Cain bring? Cain brought Cain brought some. Cain brought an offering of the fruit of the ground. What did Abel bring? Abel brought the firstlings of his flock, some of the firstborn of his flock, the best portions of the firstborn lamb of the flock, the firstlings of his flock, their fat portions. Do you see the difference? Do you see the difference? It wasn't because one was an animal and one was not. It wasn't because one had blood and one was not. It was because one was the best. One was the first. One wasn't the afterthought, the apple on the ground. Okay, this will do. I'll take my offering. That was the difference. That was the bar that was set. And that is still true today. God is still expecting our very best, whether it's time, talent, or treasure. God is still expecting the first. When do we spend time alone with God? Do we spend time alone with God when we're at our best? For a morning person, not me. Do you spend time in the morning? If you're a night owl like me, in the evening perhaps, when I have my best robust energy and precious time. What about time together, worshiping God? Do we do it only if we have time? Only if there's not something else going on? Or do we gather? Do we turn on our device and gather virtually with the people of God to worship God? Do we prioritize our activities to give God the first fruits of our time? How about our talents? How can what we're gifted with be used for God's glory wherever we are? We all have talent. We all have gifts. How do we share those gifts? Do we hoard them or do we share them? And of course, there's treasure. And while most of us here in the room aren't giving of crops or flocks, we all have treasure. So what are our first fruits? Do we have God's offering at the top of our budget? Does that come off first? Or does God get what's left, if there's anything left? What are our first fruits? Are we giving of our first fruits? And this is where pastors often lose people to the white noise in their head, because we don't want to be told how to spend our money, right? We don't want to be told that. Stick with me. Let's look back at Cain. God, not looking favorably on Cain's offering, angered Cain. It says in verse 6, verse 5, and then on to verse 6, this made Cain very angry, and he looked dejected. Why are you so angry? The Lord asked Cain. Why do you look so dejected? You will be accepted if you do what is right. But if you refuse to do what is right, then watch out. Sin is crouching at the door, eager to control you. But you must subdue it and be its master. But you must subdue it and be its master. Reading this verse brought to mind another verse that talks about money being the master. And is found in both Matthew and in Luke. Matthew 6:24 reads, no one can serve two masters, for you will hate one and love the other. You will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and be enslaved to money. And then Luke 16:13 says pretty much the same thing. No one can serve two masters, for you will hate one and love the other. You will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and be enslaved to money. It was Cain's love of his produce, of his crop, of what he produced that was his downfall. It is the ones like Abel that bring the first fruits that are showing love for God. Sin was crouching at the door. Sin was crouching at Cain and Abel's door, waiting and eager to control them. And it did. It controlled Cain. Instead of subduing this sin by giving of his first fruits, Cain deflected the blame onto Abel. Since Abel had shown up Cain, that little brother, he'd shown up Cain with his extravagant offerings of first fruit, Cain was disrespected by God. And Cain tried to get rid of his guilty conscience by getting rid of what he thought was the cause. It wasn't what he did. He didn't take ownership of that at all. In his mind, the cause of this lack of respect was Abel. So then what did he do? He got rid of Abel. And once we're on that road to deceiving ourselves, it's hard to get off. And we can see that in Cain. When the Lord comes looking for Abel, Cain has to lie about knowing where Abel is. And so it begins. And he has to cover his tracks. Cain's deceitfulness multiplies exponentially as time and humanity march on. And it all leads to the eventual issuance of the 10 Commandments. The 10 words that we talked about in the fall. Humanity had become a rolling snowball of deceitfulness that needed to be stopped. So we go back to those 10 words, words of life. The first 4, and I summarized them, and that's still out in the lobby. First 4 were all about loving God, putting God in first place in our lives. Not giving our first fruits of our time, treasure, and talents is saying God is not first in our lives. Our treasure especially becomes an idol when we value it before we value God. But anything can be an idol if we put it before God. Anything. Our hobbies, our stuff, our entertainment, anything can be an idol if we don't put God first. And there's no doubt that, these obviously weren't in place at the time of Cain and Abel, but Cain preemptively violated command number 6, no killing. And then he killed Abel, and then he lied about it, so there goes number 9. With what these 10 commands, these 10 words ultimately point to are the 2 greatest commands. And we all know them by now. Love the Lord your God with all of your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and your neighbor as yourself. Love God, love people. That's what it all comes down to. When God is number 1 in our lives, when we are wholeheartedly loving God, when we begin with love, when we expand our circle, when we love lavishly with an open-hearted love, valuing the vulnerable, emulating Christ is what we do. So we talked about all of Lent. Be love. It all comes back to love. When we emulate Christ, we love God so much that we're willing to give up everything we have, all of our first fruits for God. But on the flip side, as we celebrated last week, God has already given it all up for us. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, so that everyone who believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. God sent his Son into the world not to judge the world, but to save the world through him. John 3:17, that was the verse of the day in the Bible app, by the way. Offering first fruits often means offering God our very best, without hesitation, without regret. This includes our finances, this includes our time, our gifts, whatever God asks from us. First fruits are about choosing God first. So as you leave this place, as you turn off your device, as you go out into this world this week, I ask you to ask yourself, am I offering my first fruits to God? Do I give of my income from the top to the work of Christ? Do I give of my time to reach those in need? Do I give up of my talents to beautify the world around me? What does giving of the first fruits look like where you are? What does giving of your first fruits look like? So I'm going to ask you to take a moment right now. Take out your bulletin or a piece of paper or something and write it down. What is one thing you can do this week to give up your first fruits? I'll give you a minute. One thing that you can do this week to show that you are giving up of your first fruits. Just one thing. And then next week, you keep doing that thing and you add to it. Maybe this week you gave of the first fruits of your time. So next week, you give up first fruits of your time and first fruits of your treasure. And then the next week, first fruits of your time and of your treasure and of your talent. Because every good thing starts small. I've collected these acorns. Most of these came from the camp we go to Labor Day weekend. This is how an oak tree starts. I don't know if these acorns are good anymore, but if they were fresh and we planted them, they would be a forest of oak trees. But they start as little acorns. Everything good starts small. And the small things build, and they build, and they build. So do you want your small things to be good things that build into better things? Or your small things to be bad things that grow into worse things? Focus on the first fruits and loving the Lord your God with all of your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and loving those around you. When we follow this command, or sometimes it's called the Great Commandments, when we follow this command, being responsible stewards of our resources comes naturally. Because everything we do then comes through our God lenses. If we evaluate every action, every word, every decision we make through the filter of whether or not it shows love of God and love of others, then we will responsibly be good stewards of our resources. With these right filters and lenses, we can't go wrong. Love God, love people, the end. Let's pray.